It does bring up a lot of good issues. I mean, the one thing about the ethnogenic plants is that they're ego-dissolving, by and large. And the instance of your friend is that after 35 years of build-up, it's like coral reef. The ego accrues identity and sort of all these layers to it, but it's not healthy. You know, the tribal experience is that regular immersion into the ethnogenic, the plant realm, the Gaian realm that it connects us to, not only dissolves the ego, but connects us to something larger than ourselves and gives our life a greater meaning, a spiritual meaning of that connection. What do you think then is, I mean, without outrightly saying go take ethnogenic plants, as you're saying, there's a target window of opportunity within us all to connect, but everyone has to connect in their own unique way. But how do we get these support structures? How do we get this culture to connect and to find each other and to go to the next level, do you think? And I'll open that up to both of you.
I guess really having guides, having people who are familiar with the space is a pretty good start. And also, I guess, identifying in each and every one of us, identifying our own need, our particular requirements, where we're at a particular time, where we need to be. And in my experience, that always takes somebody else who'll help me, who'll almost hold up a mirror for me, for example. And then sometimes there's something underneath the mirror for me to sort of, to assist or facilitate that process. But certainly, being aware, being informed is an extremely important part of that. And I guess as part of EGA, I guess our primary part is communication. And of course, many of you will know that we hold a conference or a symposium each year, 1 year indoors, 1 year outdoors. And in all of those, we've had a number of very experienced people speaking and a number of very, very experienced people listening and participating in the discussions afterwards. And I think really that being able to be shown where that cubic centimetre of chance is of primary importance to be able to get it right first time, or second or third if we can.
One of the other things that we did out of EGA was start up a long-term work group, basically. It's a dyad workshop, and we work in dyads. For those of you who are not familiar with dyad work, you basically have a partner out of the group, and you sit opposite one another as close as you can without touching, and then you kind of swap roles. One person talks about, we might give you a topic to work on, or something like a Zen koan, a saying on which to sort of kind of muse, and you sit down there and one person takes on the role of being the listener, which means that they listen actively. You don't just sit there and sort of kind of hang out, you try to be there with the person. But at the same time, you try to not react to that person. So you don't show any facial expressions, you don't make any comments, you don't make any value judgments about it. You just be there for that person. The other person, we encourage to try and let go. Speak out exactly what's inside you. Talk out the topic that we're working on. And we, of course, choose subjects that we know are going to work for people. A lot of this stuff has already been worked out in psychology and psychotherapy. We know what's going to work. Some of those psychology ideas came out of Buddha 2,300 years ago, and we're still doing them. Some of the stuff that I did in Zen in Japan was so similar to what I was studying in NLP and Gestalt psychotherapy that it started to blow my mind. So my fuses got blown because it all just started to come into the same place. To come back to your elder thing just very quickly, I think that's probably the most important thing that we've lost in Western society. I lived for more than a decade in Japan, which is an ethnocentric country. They don't have strong personal egos. They have a national ego. We aren't. We're egocentric. We have a massive personal ego and a very small collective ego. And personally, I don't think there's much way that we're going to change that. But what will change it is global warming, darlings, because the ocean is coming and Melbourne is going to change shape in your lifetimes, not in mine. I'm going to watch Wilson's Prom become Wilson's Island and then I'm dead. But you guys are going to watch this city change radically in the next 50 years.
Which comes back to the need to have all the tools of consciousness, available to us to transform our species. We're going to open this up to the audience to have some questions, but just before that, to sort of tie up the idea about are we free to alter our own minds and the idea about elders, I wanted to quote really briefly from everyone's favourite rogue consciousness explorer of the 60s, Timothy Leary, who over 40 years ago uttered a declaration of evolution of consciousness. And to boil it down, I'll boil a few brief lines. He said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all species are created different but equal, that they are endowed each one with certain inalienable rights, that among them are the freedom to live, the freedom to grow, and the freedom to pursue happiness in their own style, that to protect these God-given rights, social structures naturally emerge, basing their authority on the principles of love of God and respect of all forms of life, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of life, liberty and harmony, it is the organic duty of the young members of the species to mutate, to drop out or initiate a new social structure, and laying the foundations of such principles and organising its power in such form as seems likely to produce the safety, happiness and harmony of all sentient beings." To tie that in, what we're really saying here is that these things, these abilities the plants give us to connect to ourselves and something larger are not illegal. I mean, this is a man-made word, this is the laws of the day. These are things that tribal societies have used since time immemorial and could be responsible for the spark of consciousness and us being here as humans in this day. And if we are going to actually survive, as Tim says, this coming transformation, we have to use the resources the planet is giving us, and we have to embrace our full potential as human beings. So I'd like to now just open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions about ethnogenic issues. We have about 10 minutes to take some questions from the audience. And we have a roving mic with our mic boy here, Brian. Any questions at all? Don't feel shy. We'll have to keep talking here if you don't have a question. Up in the back there, I think he's on the front.
All right. Just got to think about how to carefully phrase this. In response to your question, are we free to
alter or be in control of our own minds, really?
In control of our own minds. Of course we are, but I'd just like to make the point that we're more free if we don't rely on external substances. And in relation to having mentors in this kind of cultural movement or having elders and so forth to turn to, I'm sitting here thinking about attitudes of elitism that get in the way from... sorry, it's not really a question, it's more just a point.
Okay, yeah.
But in relation to the freeing our own minds, I think it's really important to all have an understanding that we're free to do so with or without external substances. And plants certainly help, but let's not limit ourselves.
I totally agree. All paths lead to God is an old wisdom saying. And I am not going to say to anyone you should do these things. What we are trying to say is that the knowledge of these substances has been almost eradicated by Western culture in its domination of the planet, and we're just trying to open up the playing field. And I would love to not be in a hierarchical situation of us on stage and you up there. I would love us to be in a giant circle and sharing space and all together, and whatever ideas come up are good. That's the after party of the Luke Bar. Thank you. Are there any other questions out there? Right at the back.
Good exercise.